Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About It. We are here to talk about childhood crimes that other people do not want to talk about it. Tonight is a panel interview. I have with me tonight Sylvia Trevino and Carol Boyce, and they have been with me before on the show, but tonight we really want to talk about the mystery around incest, and particularly all three of us have lived through the father-daughter impact of that. And so tonight's episode, we really want to go into all of those questions that are around why didn't you talk about it. Actually, the questions start with ourselves. We always live in this mystery. And one of the things that I thought about for both of you, as I thought about this last night, I woke up and you know what, it occurred to me, and I want to hear what you guys think about this, but as a child, my father began when I was incredibly young. Nobody talked about it. You went to dinner, you watched a movie, you took a bath, you went to bed, you got up. It became a normal part of life. It wasn't even like it was a secret. It was like putting your shoes on in the morning. I was abused so much that it just lived with me in the current of my life. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I was torn away to the secret place and horribly damaged. It hurt in the beginning, for sure, when I was little. But after a while, the torment of that pain goes away because I remember one time being in a court case and I heard an expert say that at 4 years old, you can take the full size of a man without any damage at 4 years old. And that's just a remarkable thing. So when you think about that, right, it just became routine for me. So part of when I talk to you guys, and the reason I really limited it to father-daughter is because then all of a sudden we kind of hit life, we go meet friends, we get a husband, but we don't really realize that we've been raped for 15 years. Talk to me about that. Is that how it felt for you guys as well?
Well, in my case, again, I I was being molested probably from 3 years old on. I'll never know the actual dates, but I do believe it was about that. And I had no memory of it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I had this was my protection mechanism I came up with when I was this tiny child. And but it was always with me, and I had kind of terror in me all the time. I had all the emotional baggage, but not the actual memories. But yes, I think I had it out in life, and I had no idea what had happened to me. And I was doing all kinds of things, and fear and panic attacks, eating disorder. I was having all kinds of problems, but it wasn't until I was 36 that I actually realized
Right.
what
See,
had
isn't it
happened.
right? I was in my
Mhm.
20s, and I think your distinction is good. And then, Sylvia, I want to hear from you. But that distinction is good. We're filled with pain and
Yeah.
chaos, and we're
Yep.
racked with
Mhm.
emotion and nightmares and
Yep.
pain. But
Hmm.
weirdly, we don't put that together like we're being raped. It just doesn't
No.
work
Yeah.
that way because it's a
Mm-mm.
normal current. So go ahead, Sylvia. I want to hear from you about what that experience was.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like we were programmed to just receive that,
Hmm.
you know,
Right.
that molestation and, the things that were done to us. And, I think too, if it's at such a young age that we don't know. And so we feel uncomfortable, but when it becomes your new normal and you're so young, you just go with it, you know? And
Right. That new normal.
not,
Keep going. Right. That's
yeah, not
exactly what we're
really
talking about.
knowing, because of course, if we did, we probably would have defended ourselves a little bit better. And then by the time we get to the age where we realize and start remembering, then we have that whole pain thing and the guard up, the protectors, that we've had our whole life. And then we realize, wow, now we know why we had those up as we, like you said, we get married and, begin to have relationships that are, normal. But
Right.
I think that's just something as in my situation, I know for sure that it just became something that happened. And like you said, it becomes your new normal.
Yeah.
It does so much. Carol, did you have something to add?
Well, the other thing that just always floors me is to think that your father, who's supposed to love and care about you, is watching you fumble through life, and as you leave the nest and try to function, they're not there going, hey, let me help you. By the way, I think maybe sexual abuse had something to do with this. Nothing. They
No,
just are
they're never
letting
going to
you
help us.
flounder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the ones that put us in that prison.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing too. But yeah, absolutely. As you grow up, you only know who you are, and you pretty much take what people have told about yourself, like your self-awareness, and you go forward and do the best you can
I
until you
love
can't.
that. Yep. See, and you guys
You
both,
just can't.
yes, you guys both understand what I mean when people don't get that it's who we were. It's who we were told we were supposed to be. So if you were born in a prison, you would only know prison walls. The only thing we knew, and it's just the mystery around it for people who didn't come from it. They don't understand that every day served up to us was this prison mentality. We were children. We knew no different. I thought every little girl's dad was happening. I mean, you don't even really think about comparison when you're little, right? Like you don't even compare.
So much criticism from people who say, well, why didn't you say something earlier? Why did, doubting. And I'm like, you really think I would want to make something like this up?
Right.
Like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. I'm not.
100%.
No. And, to all those people out there that don't know, it can take somebody that has suffered childhood sexual abuse, whether it's incest with the family, a teacher, a coach, a priest, it doesn't matter that it's happened. It's not going to come up until we start to become an adult. There's some people that have such protectors over them that it's their 40s and 50s before they start remembering.
Yeah.
And I think that's
100%.
very important for the public and other people to know that, because the statute of limitations should be unlimited.
Yes.
On childhood sexual abuse. There shouldn't be a 2 to 5 year or 5, no, it just doesn't work like that. Our brain and our heart are both protecting us. And that's why how can we speak up about something we can't acknowledge, and that our brain does to protect us? That's how God made our bodies and our brain and our mind, and our heart to work.
Exactly. And Sylvia, when you bring that point up, actually, we are living normally just like everybody else does. For instance, when they were 3 years old, they got a red tricycle, but they don't remember that tricycle again until they're 27, and something triggers their mind because they walk into a store, they see a movie, and all of a sudden their mind is triggered to remember that red tricycle. It's exactly the same for us. It's no different trauma is held in different places in your mind, but it works exactly the same. We're triggered by something, a sound, a smell, a movie, and then we're triggered. So talk about that a little bit, because they return to us exactly the same way. So our minds are working as every other human being on the planet. Unfortunately, our mind just has a whole bunch of shit in it, right? But it works exactly the same.
That's right. And I think you can't underestimate the terror that the sexual abuse gives you. I know for me, I was terrorized. And for me to actually have the maturity and a stable enough home life to somehow acknowledge that I would be able to face this now and actually survive. I really think that's what's going on. I think you have to be triggered. And I think you've got to grow enough that you think you'll make it, because I really, that I survived looking at it, I think is something I'll forever be grateful for.
Oh,
yeah.
So much. Sylvia, talk about that for a minute. It's so true. We have those memories come back to us just like that tricycle, but we can have fear around that and block it. And then
Yes.
we'll block it for another 5 years, but it
Yep.
came back exactly the same way as a red tricycle comes back.
Mhm.
But a lot of
Yes.
times you're exactly right. So Sylvia, talk about that a little bit, about the fear around those memories. That's a really valid
Well,
point, Carol.
Thank you.
something that and yes, it really, really great point, Carol. Something for me that started unlocking all these memories is, I don't want to be too grotesque or detailed.
You be as open as you want here.
But, you know, I knew and remembered when I got triggered and started having a sexual relationship, with a man, a boyfriend. And when I saw their parts and it, boom.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, what's happening?
Right.
And those triggers were terrifying.
Well, you know what? And talk to me about those triggers. I mean, a lot of times we can, our father's face overlays on their face, like all kinds of,
Yeah.
I think it helps to bring that mystery to, we're really talking to people who have lived through incest, right? And the bystander can certainly learn, but I hear from so many women particularly, but men as well. There's many men that actually follow and save our stuff. What you just said, Sylvia, those trigger, we want to go away from it, right? Each one of us wants to go away because a trigger or a memory for us, unfortunately, is very uncomfortable. It's not like, oh, it was a shiny new bike. It was like, oh my God, my father raped me. It's a totally different thing. So talk about a few of those triggers as much as you're comfortable.
Well, I know what happened in me is I thought my psyche told me that if I'm enjoying this with this person, then that meant I enjoyed it with my father.
Oh, see, yeah.
It was the lines were very blurred.
I think we can say, we totally understand. How do you not though? You know what I mean? For our mind, when we talk about, so we started with the normal for us was being raped by our father throughout childhood. So, I mean, it's going to carry through that. I mean, you can't just turn that track off, right? Without a lot of intense therapy. Carol, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of the triggers I had were around kind of claustrophobia issues, being left alone, feeling like I was on my own, terrified me, because during the abuse I felt so alone and so unprotected. I couldn't get on an airplane, and I couldn't, go in a dark room. I couldn't hear a door shutting. A lot of things like that, which were so unrelated in some senses to the abuse. And I had no idea why I had this, why I would be absolutely panicky, when someone else was in control of my life, like in an airplane. Somebody shut the door and I knew I couldn't get out. Those kind of things were incredible triggers for me. And of course, I had no idea what they were related to for many years.
Right. And so, going back to when we were young, but it relates to right here. And so let's talk about that for a minute for the person listening, because I'm going to be 60 in just a few months. And it's taken me a lifetime to understand that I lived in close relationship to my father, to the man who abused me weekly. I lived in close relationship with him. I loved him. We watched movies together. We played games together. He was my captor. And so just like the Munchausen's syndrome, right, where the bank robbers come in and then the people actually get a fund, you guys, to defend these very people to put their life on the line. It's true, because when I talk to you guys, I could hear, I don't want to use the word adoration, but we had a respect for our fathers because they could do anything to us. And that respect, I've had people leave notes for me and they'll say, I can hear the respect you have for your dad. Well, wouldn't you, if he could take your life and didn't?
Yeah.
But so talk a little bit about that back then, what that felt like, right? Because it's insidious. It's criminal, but we didn't know any different.
No, we didn't know any difference. And I adored my father.
See?
Loved him dearly. He was, it's the nature of a sociopath. They have the good side, they have the social thing, and then they're destroying you in the back room. So,
Boy, I never thought about it
it's
like
this
that, right?
very
Wow.
complex
Mm-hmm.
mind you're trying to figure out as a really young child. But, my father was personable. He had no temper. He
Mm-hmm.
had, he never blew up or anything. And he was an incredible musician that he brought me all into that. He was a cardiologist, internist, and he taught me everything he could about medicine. There were wonderful, wonderful things. Yeah. And the community adored him. I heard frequently what a wonderful doctor he was. So that is certainly extremely confusing to the child.
Incredibly.
Incredibly
Very.
Incredibly.
confusing.
And
And
Sylvia, you have a story that's similar to what Carol just shared.
Yes, she's saying that, and I'm just like, wow,
really,
somebody that can
Mhm.
relate, because my dad was somebody that I recently received a newspaper clipping from my cousin, because my father built the very first Cesar Chavez Learning Center in Dallas, Texas.
really.
And he was an architect, and he flew to San Bernardino, and he mimicked a church that was there, a Mexican
Mm.
church, and he took that architecture and that style, and that's what he used. And I mean, it was on the news. He was at the ribbon cutting. When he passed away, the school approached me and asked if I had any renderings of or drawings of their building that they could post. And
So a very
you know,
accomplished man.
a
Yeah.
very
Mhm.
and like you, Carol, very, friendly, approachable,
Mhm.
social. um and it's mind-blowing, because here's this person and people
Yeah.
just adore him, and on one side you're like, well, I kind of like adore him too.
I
Mhm.
I
was
think
just going to
he's
ask you, what side do you
pretty,
guys want to
like,
hold on to? The pedophile
right,
side or the side that was adored?
The
yeah,
truth.
It's human, right? It's built in as kind of to deny and go to that side that's good, go to the side
Yeah.
that's good. It's
Yep.
very
yeah,
difficult to say, for me to be the best person that I'm going to be, I got to walk away from all that, all of all the sham.
Mhm.
yeah,
It's bullshit, but
Exactly.
you know what I mean? But that's hard, you guys, because everybody around us wants us to hold on to that because it's easier
yeah.
for them too, by the way, right?
Yes, much easier for them.
And
And who doesn't
why?
want to believe the good side of somebody?
Right,
I think it's extremely hard for my family to let go of the good person, you know.
right. And you don't want to be the one to blow the cover.
Because it's
Am I
your
Well,
going
I
to be
fault,
have.
right,
the
Sylvia?
one person in the world that, just like,
Yeah.
it happens to public officials, and the girl stands up and she doesn't want to, but she
Mhm.
wants to speak her truth. Do I
Yeah.
want to be that one person that blows him up?
Mhm.
So,
And I've written a book about it, about my experience and what it
Go
was
ahead and say
like.
the title, Carol.
It's
yeah,
called First I Believe You. It's on Amazon. But yeah, First I Believe You,
It's a
because
very good book. I've read it.
thank you. Thank you so much. But I had really wanted to write down what this experience was like, and how crazy you feel trying to go
Mhm.
through this when you haven't faced what the actual truth is. And the truth about the
mhm,
perpetrator. I mean, this is serious crimes. Like Jody is always
right,
first to say, these are serious crimes
yeah,
against children.
Mhm.
And you have to hold these people accountable, whether they're even still alive or not. We have to speak the truth of what these people look like. I don't think anybody understands how these people look, even though I know, like
right,
you, Jody, had a father that clearly did things that were horrible. I think, I don't know if he was as respected in the community, and
No.
you
He
know
was a
so
body and fender man. He was a hillbilly that didn't care what you thought about him,
oh,
but he was liked. I mean, people did like him for
like
sure.
him.
I
Yeah.
mean, he had that sociopath way where you wouldn't be around him. He would
yeah,
influence you to like him, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. You know what I mean? And he was
hmm,
handsome. He was a very good looking guy, so he used that, and he had charisma, of
Yeah.
course. But then at the
Mm.
end
That's
of the
their
day,
cover.
yeah, he didn't really care what you thought. That was my father. He did not
Uh-huh.
care what you thought about him. And I'm curious, did your fathers care about their image to the outside world?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would think so.
I talk in the book about
Mhm.
the curb appeal of our
Oh,
family.
that's right. I love that. Yes,
Yeah,
I
the
love
curb
that.
appeal was very important, and the social standing, and all
Mhm.
of that was very important. Um,
And the same
yeah,
with you, Sylvia, right?
Oh yeah. Like it was all about, driving a Mercedes, giving me a BMW for my first car when I was 16. You
wow.
know,
Wow, yeah.
we want to be all shiny and,
And weren't you
looking
the one that
and
went golfing with your father?
yes, we would
You
go
guys
golfing
were
all the
you
time.
guys were good friends. And how
We were
old are
buddies
you? I
on the
mean,
golf course.
right, but this is now when you're grown.
No, he started taking me golfing when I was 5 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
They always
Yeah.
keep us in their pocket, don't they?
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like how the grooming process continued,
Right.
because a
Wow.
lot of people think that grooming is just up to the time of the abuse, but it's not.
No.
It continues, it's
100%.
not just a pre molestation. It's the
Mhm.
Oh
whole
my
way.
God. That is so beautiful because actually until their death, they continue to groom. And what is their
Yeah.
grooming? You're lying. That's not the story. We had love between us. It wasn't like that. It wasn't abusive. It was love between us. They take those
Yes.
stories to their deathbed, and we will be
Yes.
called liars if we try to change those stories. Talk about that for a minute.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. uh, uh, I think part of the sociopathic or narcissistic personality is they've got to be appreciated, believing that they're somehow good. And they say they make up stories in their mind. And, this idea that, oh, the daughter wanted this, or she
Right?
Mhm.
participated freely. It wasn't me putting this on her. And that's all this narrative they come up with. And they don't want
Mhm.
anyone to break that narrative.
No.
They don't want
And they're
anyone.
almost overachievers. And that's why I
Yeah.
think they're so successful. Like your father was a doctor, My
Mhm.
father got his architectural degree. He went on to Harvard and got his degree in city
Wow.
planning because they have to rise above
Yes,
because they know
they're
the
scum.
truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
They know the
Well,
truth
and
and
they're
what they
brilliant. I
did.
mean, let's face it, you guys, these are criminal minds. I mean, they're
Mhm.
evil criminal minds that we
Yes.
can't understand. And I do believe, and I'm going to say it till the day I die, they have an evil presence helping them get away with all that they do because they're such
Yes.
masterminds. And I do think that
Mhm.
this is one of the crimes that hell has created because you don't have anything to prove that they've been raping you for years, nothing but your word against
Mhm.
theirs. They know
Nothing.
you're going to lose. I
Nothing.
mean, what better crime against children? Because all they leave us with when we hit in reality, we're really just left with a heartbeat because now we have confusion, loss, chaos. We control nothing.
Yes.
We don't even know what's happening when we hit the world because we've been so
Yeah.
controlled. So it's a
Yeah.
perfect crime. It actually murders everything except our very heartbeat.
Amen.
That's the only thing that's left. And so I've
They're taking
always
your soul,
they do. It's
I mean,
horrifying.
how does somebody do that? And I think, there's talking about father child relationships. I mean, that is the most incredible betrayal of trust. Nothing could be a bigger
Yeah.
betrayal. And particularly your father, when you think of protecting you in the world, they're the only
Yes.
one, you know, and your mother that should be protecting you. And it takes an incredible lack of soul and conscience to be able to do this and spend the rest of their lives
Amen.
saying it never happened. I mean, it's an incredible betrayal of trust and of our
Huge.
souls.
Yep, huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
That
ahead, Sylvia.
that whole and I think that's something that is so unique about the three of us together that it was your father and that
Yeah.
was something that and not to say other people don't suffer or have as much pain, even if it's not their father. But the psyche, like, how do you get your head around that? This is
Mhm.
my father. This is,
Right.
a parent. This parent is supposed to love and, um, cherish me and protect me. And
Yes.
I think between the three of us, we can definitely relate to that kind of a pain, that I don't think
Hugely.
I'll ever feel again. It's such a
Yeah.
particular kind of a pain,
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
specific.
Well, exactly, which that I so want to touch on that. I knew this is such a beautiful place to insert. There is this kind of weird religious spirit that sits very closely with incest. And most of our fathers want to be thought of as godly people. My father certainly did. Carol, did yours?
He would go to church. I don't know how much he believed in it, but yeah, he wanted to
Right.
be thought of. Oh, absolutely.
Yes. And what about Sylvia?
Absolutely.
Was your, did your
Oh
father like?
yeah. He was a CCD teacher at the Catholic school.
So, as I've always said, the spirit
Wow.
of religion, I believe, sits in front of the spirit of incest, and they make
Yeah.
them look fantastic. And I'm going to say
Mhm.
right now to the spirit of religion, one thing that they teach people that come through incest is you have a moment in time to talk about your story and then it's over. That
Yeah.
is not from the throne of God. God would find your
No.
story for your entire life. We were abused for some of us 15, 10, 20 years. There is no way that a loving Father God would say to you, you have a minute in time.
Yes.
I read this. I don't know if you guys know
Uh,
who Beth Moore is, but I'm going to talk about this
yeah.
book for a minute because this Beth Moore wrote a book called All My Knotted Up Life. And I'll tell you in here, she has a line that says, the old flashbacks from my youth have faded now, dissipating into light. Any flashbacks that make me shudder these days are from that season. I have to tell you, this kind of approach that Christians are doing are killing people, because if you what
Mhm.
they're saying in this spirit of religion is, if you guys don't get better in 3 weeks, you have 3 weeks to heal, and otherwise it's not
Right.
Jesus. I am
Yeah.
here to
Yeah.
say that is from the pit of hell. That is not
Yeah.
the truth. We have as much time. God will be loving us till the day we leave this planet, because what you just said,
Amen.
Sylvia, is our
Amen.
hearts were broken from the time we should have been learning how to ride a trike, and instead we had broken
Yes.
hearts. So
Yes.
you know what?
Mhm.
I cannot say enough. I'm going to fight that spirit of religion around that all day long, because you know what? How Jesus has taken me away from drinking 2 bottles of wine a night. He talks to me
Mhm.
over and over and over, and he says, Jody, I need to take you back to that room. I need to take you back
Yeah.
so that I can go and wipe all of that mess off of you and let me hold you in that moment. And when it
Mhm.
comes
Yes.
again, he's right there
Amen.
again. There's never a time he says to me, oh, sorry, Jody,
No.
your limit's up. You know what?
Your
That was
time's
back
up.
then. You're good now. Why do we have to
Yeah.
There's
slap a
no
label on it that we're
expiration
good
date.
now? No
Mhm.
expiration date. Talk to me
There's
about that,
no
you guys, because I'm so
expiration date.
tired of Christians throwing this label on it that you got 10 minutes to heal or it's
Yep.
not God.
Because
Yeah.
again, they don't want to hear about it. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to hear us
Oh,
speak up
yep,
and talk about this very uncomfortable, ugly subject. And
exactly. Well,
it
unless
it
you put it in a pretty package.
yes, or it
Yeah.
further victimizes the victim. And you have to remember too, and Sylvia, I have no idea what years your abuse occurred or if you even know, but this very young abuse, your brain is still forming. I mean,
Oh
100%.
yeah.
you don't even have your whole brain, and this violence against you, this hatred against
Right.
you is getting put into your actual being. And of course they
Yeah.
know that with trauma now, it's very much a physical illness also. And I
Hugely.
don't know that, I am almost 70 years old. Not thrilled about that, but anyway, I
Hey,
now
we are
think,
warrioring up. You're
yeah,
fine. You know what? Takes a
I
long
now
time to heal from
think
our wounds.
that you're healing your entire life.
Yes.
This,
Yeah.
I'm so much better. I've come a long way, and I know Jody has too, and Sylvia, you're working
Sylvia
on
has,
it, and
yeah.
but it doesn't leave you. It's way too
No.
traumatic that it
Never.
it, it doesn't leave you. You learn to cope.
And it's
Yeah.
offensive, right? Sylvia, talk about that a little bit,
Very
because
offensive.
you
Yeah.
started saying something, and in this beautiful conversation, we probably moved past it, but you talked about the judgment that you've received around this. Talk to me about that, because
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I started this, honestly, was all the naysayers, or the people out there that
Yes.
have never lived the experience. And without experience, like Smith Wigglesworth used to say, a man without an experience has nothing to say to a man with one. And it's just the
Right.
truth. So
Amen.
talk about that a little bit.
I think that it's so sad that, again, that, like you said, there's no time. And our wound, it's a trauma wound, and we'll have that. That will never go away. So, we have to live with that for a lifetime. But
It's
then yet we're
reality.
supposed to get it. Well, when are you going to get over it? When are you going to, that's what really
Yes.
gets me going is, of course, the time, but the get over it. Well, let me do to you what let think about having something
Exactly.
done to you that was done to me.
Yeah.
And you want to chat about it? I can tell you everything in detail.
That's right. Do you have a
Up to
couple months?
sound, smells, I'll tell you it all. And then tell me if you feel the same way.
Right.
I mean, how dare you tell me that I have to get over it?
Oh,
Yes.
Something so disgusting,
amen.
something so vile, something so
Exactly.
criminal
Yep.
that people should be thrown in prison and the key locked away.
Yep.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely. And so
And
few ever go to prison.
So few. Only 70%
yeah,
report, you guys, of all the numbers we see. That's only 70%.
and that's the ones that are talking about it
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
that
Exactly.
aren't
And
still,
Satan's getting
yeah,
away with this horrific crime, and the church
Yes.
is letting it happen. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm tired of it. And I'm so thankful for you guys to
Me
be here
too.
tonight, because we are followers of Jesus Christ. He has helped me. I know at 4 years old, he came, I didn't even turn 4 yet. I turned 4 in 2 months, but I know he came to me in that room, and I met him there. My mom said, we didn't know how you met him, because they were hedonistic prigs. But you know what? He found
right.
me, and I've been with him ever since. And so, but the spirit of religion is not Jesus. It's not the God of the Bible.
No,
And that's the thing, that to heal, the thing that we have to offer is the love and comfort of God. And it is not contained in a time period.
No,
yes,
it's not.
exactly.
It's not at all. And it's, and it just gets back to also that the families will do anything to maintain
Yes.
their family structure.
100%.
The
curb appeal. The curb appeal.
The curb appeal.
Yeah.
And just having that structure. And when you look at the patriarch of the family, who's a criminal, and you start telling the truth that this person was a total criminal, and all of that, it's like they will fight for that family structure, and that, beyond anything, beyond any one member. And we have to change that narrative. We have to change this narrative.
my daughter called me yesterday, and we were talking about this kind of thing, because unfortunately, it's always close to home. You come from incest, and you happen to find it all around, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I think we could all talk about that. Cousins, aunts, like all of this stuff starts happening.
Yes.
Generational curses.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. But we've got to bring, sometimes she said to me, Mom, we didn't realize why you moved us away from the family. Everybody, they were mad at me, like, no cousins. Because if you come from a family of incest, and your aunt is not talking about it and staying in denial with the family, but those children have been hurt, those children may, not all of them, but they may hurt the cousins. And now you're perpetuating it. So I'm going to say this again until the day I leave this planet. If you come from a family line of incest, and you have siblings and parents who will not talk to you and take complete accountability, you should not be living by those people. You should not be, because there's a matter of urgency, because children continue to be hurt in those families. That's just reality, right? You guys, would you agree?
That's a wonderful insight. And incest is occurring in many, many families that have no idea.
Millions.
And I think that I think every single family, every single mother, every single father needs to be openly talking about sexual abuse within the family, that they
Yes.
will not support
Amen.
it, that they will prosecute to the full extent if there's any kind of sexual
Mhm.
abuse. There's no conversation in families about this issue
No, because
because
we're the
it's so,
liars. Are you guys
yeah,
believe in your families and supported? Ask, I
yeah.
mean, answer that question. Sylvia, does your family support you? Are you guys all now your
My
father's gone, right?
Yeah, my father's gone. He's been gone about 10, 11 years now.
Okay.
But he did on his deathbed, he apologized. I wasn't there.
Is
He
that right?
he told my uncle
Ugh.
to tell me that he was, so sorry for what he had done to me. He apologized to my sister. My sister was there. I had already moved from Dallas to Austin. So before he went into surgery and he knew he was gonna pass. And my sister said, well, Dad, you don't know that. Like they're telling you, there's a chance, of course, because it was a heart attack. And he said, no, it's my time. I'm going. And he died 15 minutes on the table. But he did apologize.
Did he say to his uncle that he had raped and molested you guys, or did he just say I was a bad dad and I'm sorry?
No, 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 he told him.
Oh,
That's
He
that's
told him.
amazing.
it is amazing.
Very, very unusual.
Well,
Very,
deathbed confessions, though, my father apologized for the murder and he died the next morning. He didn't apologize
right.
for
Yeah.
the rape of all those years, but we had a lot between us he needed to apologize for.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's and that's good. It could be because he was crossing over and needed to look. And
Yeah.
I'm not even going to touch that.
Yeah.
That's none of my
And
business. And that's awesome to leave
I
that.
don't know the sincerity of it. I don't know. I won't know
Yeah.
until
And I'm not,
it's
yeah.
my
And
time and
I
I
would
go to be
never
with
take
God,
that off the table. It's there. An
Um,
apology is never a bad thing ever. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I
I mean,
appreciate
it
that.
did feel when my uncle was telling me, because my uncle was just a beautiful, beautiful. He passed away just a couple of years ago, but he was always such a great father figure to me because I spent a lot of time at his house. He was married to my dad's sister, and she was like another mom to me as well. But
Sure.
when my uncle was telling me, he was just weeping, and he apologized to me and he said, I'm so sorry, I never even knew. And I said, Uncle James, it's not your fault. Like,
Right.
it's not my fault. It's not anybody's fault but
Right.
his.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I don't know how sincere it was. I don't, am I glad that he may have felt some remorse,
Of
you know,
course.
but,
Well, do they know it's wrong? They do. You guys, they absolutely
yeah,
do. When my dad
yeah,
was dying, right, and he apologized for the murder, he did say, I said Craig might be going to jail because he was in that room with us when they killed her. And you know what Dad said for the child molestation? They know it's wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
there's no
yeah,
No.
question that every pedophile in the world knows it's wrong.
yeah,
And I'm
absolutely,
sorry, Sylvia. I
100%.
didn't you keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
Keep
no, that's
going.
okay. Well, my family doesn't know. Obviously, my sister and I were abused together. We know. I told my mother recently, probably 2 or 3 years ago, and it broke her heart and she felt horrible. But there was just no way she would know. No way. Because he would always do it when she was away.
Mm,
He picked, those perfect times when he knew she was going to be gone for hours. She was actually working on when it started, she was working on her master's. So
mm.
she was teaching during the day and then she would go to SMU at
That's
night.
so sad.
And
So sad.
and
Thinking you
then
were safe
Saturday,
with your father, right?
exactly. She
Yeah.
was blown. I mean, the shock.
Yeah.
She was just like she just kept holding her head and she's like, no, tell me this is a nightmare. Tell me to pinch myself
Right.
that this didn't happen. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
and that gets into this role of mothers,
Which is huge.
which is a huge subject. And
Huge in
yeah,
families of
yeah,
incest. Yeah.
but I do believe that incest occurs in families that have severe dysfunction. I
Mhm.
hmm
think for the mother or whether it's the
Correct.
father married to a a mother that's molesting, I think that that when you're married to a sociopath or somebody with this degree of ability to hurt another person, their own children, and they don't recognize it, that says something about that relationship, or
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going, Carol.
yeah, and also the mother that maybe kind of knows, kind of has a feel. I think my mother felt my father was always having an affair, which he could have been, but I do think she could feel that he was having another
Right.
relationship, but it was with her daughter. I don't think it ever occurred to her. But
Right.
and then the mothers that actually know and allow this man to stay in the family.
Right. And that was my mother for sure.
Yeah, which is really, God, an incredible betrayal to the child.
Yeah,
Just an
I'm so sorry
incredible lack of
that.
trust. And and then that gets into the finances too, and certainly we were all raised in that era where the father was the primary breadwinner.
Right.
And when women to this day have children they can't support, it makes the child, I think, that much more vulnerable to sexual abuse, because the perpetrator knows the
Oh,
family can't
100%.
exist without them. I mean, it gets into a lot of issues that are very important.
Well, and don't these predators always kind of want us to believe our mothers are weak? I mean, Sylvia, was your mother a strong presence in the home?
Oh yeah. And she was very very active, even though, she worked full time. This was the 70s. So she was, the Brownie troop leader. She actually worked and got a job teaching at the private school, the private Catholic school that I went to, just so she could be closer to, her children and be able to watch
Right.
over them. And, that's why my dad picked the times when there was absolutely no way she could ever, know. And of course, he always told us, don't tell your mom, she
Right.
won't understand, and blah, blah, blah. And so, we didn't. And, but I do know that, the mothers do play a big role. And I think there's a lot of mothers out there that, like, Carol said, they know what's going on, but, what if they can't leave them because then maybe they won't have the money and, the whole financial thing.
Right. Exactly.
But I know my mom because I told her, and she had kind of questioned me about like sexual type stuff. And it was after they had gotten a divorce.
Oh,
And
okay.
Oh,
and she had asked me, well, did you have like any kind of a bad experience? Like, were you raped like at a party, or did somebody just take advantage of you and you couldn't push them off because of my behavior? Like, she was trying to figure out,
Right.
I was
Right.
acting out, going out, partying, hooking up with, any
Right.
guy that I
Being
could. And
treated bad equates to bad
yeah,
behavior.
right. And she's like, what's happening,
Right.
And she said, well, if I ever knew, of anything, anybody in the family, we will take them to court.
Right.
All you have to do is tell me. And I
good.
was like, no, mom, it's not. And this was even still at the time where I was still processing, which I knew it had been done, but it was also overwhelming to me,
Right.
Yeah.
It's in the incubating stages.
Yeah.
But there is this theme that lives in all incestuous homes, and the theme is that the dads always secret the mother away. They make them feel like they're these weaker than, or they're mental, or they're angry, or they're alcoholics, or they're
Yeah.
but they're a problem. The moms are a problem. And so it separates the children from the mother, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I see that it just kind of as a theme. And going back to that book that Beth Moore wrote called All My Knotted Up Life, she writes 300 pages, and many of those pages are dedicated to how messed up her mother was, leaving the house, suicidal, smoking cigarettes. Do you know how many chapters? And her father did molest her in a car. Do you know how many pages are dedicated to him? None. 4 paragraphs in the whole book.
Is
That
that
disturbed
right?
me. That's the whole
Yeah.
book
Wow.
disturbed me. And I'll tell you, I get it though. I mean, she's living out every life that many of us have, but that her mother got bashed for pages and pages and pages. And there's 4 paragraphs, 4, that the dad only came over on the seat and then did things he shouldn't have. That's it. That's it. The whole book. That's
No,
all she
that's
ever says.
huge.
It's
That is
that's
so interesting.
but see,
Wow.
you guys, doesn't that kind of, it's easier to talk about them, isn't it, than talk about that
Yeah.
story? And
Yeah.
see, that's, I guess, what I am. So I wrote a book called A Prisoner by No Crime of
Yeah.
My Own. I saw it 30
Which is
years ago in
great.
my mind. It took forever. Do you know what I intentionally wrote? I read this book about this man who had been in a car accident, and he made me feel the smell of the metal as it twisted, and he made me feel the pain that he had in the hospital bed as he recovered for 2 years. And I asked God if I could write a book that would make somebody understand what emotional pain feels like. If it was very much like that man getting in a wreck. They thought he was dead. They covered him up. I thought I was dead, and life was covering me up.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
wrote a book to make people feel for the survivors out there, the warriors like us. I wanted them to know that I understand, because emotional pain is debilitating. People
Yeah.
underestimate the power of emotional pain. It makes cancer. It brings tumors. It destroys us from the inside out.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
wanted a book that said, I get your pain significantly and deeply, and I made it to the other side. But if it, it's that experience that if you don't make a person come into your experience, they can't feel it,
Mhm.
which is why I really love that we're doing this. And I really want to ask you guys to do this once a month with me, because it's so important for us to come together as warrior survivors from these crimes and talk about it, because
Yes.
there are themes that run through these families that we've got to dissect and help people see, right? So
Yeah.
Yes.
anyway, I'm going to put
Awareness.
it back out to you guys, because I'm sure you have things to say.
Well, and that's why I wrote First I Believe You.
Mhm,
Because
mhm. You show us
didn't
the
know,
path. Yes.
yeah,
Keep
I
going.
didn't know anybody who had no memories. And certainly people
Mhm,
aren't out there talking over coffee about it.
mhm.
And my just experience was so crazy making, and yes, so painful. I mean, just incredibly debilitating. Like you say, the emotions are absolutely debilitating, and you don't want to live, you don't want to be there. But getting to the other side, yeah, I think I felt the same thing. I just want people to see my experience, to see you can get to the other side of this, and survive it, so yeah, you want to kind of show a path. And like Jody's story is just unbelievable. You've got to read her book. It's just an amazing story.
I heard
And
the other day someone say it reads like fiction, but then all of a sudden you realize this is a
it's
person's life. But the truth is,
unbelievable.
you guys, Sylvia, it's
Wow.
like what you said. If you want to really hear my story, I've got the time if you want to take it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Yeah.
by the way, we are survivors, which means we can probably, when you get to that healing part, right? Sylvia, talk
We can
about that a
handle
little bit.
telling it.
We can handle it.
It is so easy to share your story when you speak your truth. And
Yes.
I was not always an advocate like I am now. It took me, like my first time admitting to someone in a healthy environment and somebody that I could trust.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, the experience that I'm having now with Journey to Heal, which is a great book,
Mhm.
Carol, written by Crystal Sutherland. And it's a
Oh, I'm
7,
gonna
it's
go
a,
get that.
Yeah, and they
it's
actually
a
have,
7,
go ahead and share that. Sorry, Sylvia.
no, that's okay. It's a 7-step study book, and it takes you from the beginning to the end. And so I went through and did the book with a mentor, a friend that somebody's been on Jody's show as well. And now I'm a mentor and I lead other women with their healing of childhood sexual abuse through Christ, because there's nobody else that can heal us the way that he can.
Great.
And again,
Amen.
we'll always have that wound, but and that's a big lesson in the book, that as mentors we really need to push these women to speak to each other and tell each other their stories.
Yeah.
First of all, it bonds them in such a beautiful way, and then it's so empowering you know, you have no problem, you know, have I ever, oh yeah, I have, would you like to go to coffee?
We
And I'll
get
tell you
each
all
other.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, we
You
get
know,
We
each
get each
other.
other.
Yeah.
and then we can give knowledge to people, you know, and
Yes.
get into before it happens, you know, if, and you doing these things, Jody, just brings awareness for people who haven't
Mhm.
experienced anything like us. It doesn't have to be the way it was for you and me
Right.
and Carol. Change can
So
happen.
true.
And
100%. But it takes, I do believe that we live in a society, you guys, that is abuser centric. It does not come around victims. Every time I have
Nope.
people tell me, I can't read your book, I have to put it down. I mean, but you can watch a horror movie, but you can't read
Right.
reality. I mean, it's so, and
My
it's,
mom is that way. I'll tell her, oh yeah, this is my friend, and she went through the program with me, and you know, it was her brother, you know, whatever. And
Mhm.
she'll be like, oh my, Sylvia, like stop. I can't, like it's just too horrifying to me. I
right,
can't, it's hard enough for me to know what happened to you. And I'm like, okay, mom, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's okay. She's 84. I don't want her to be
right,
burdened with
right,
anything. She deserves to be happy, joyous, and free. But you know, people are like that.
right.
It's like you know, I can't. I
Yeah.
don't want to hear about it.
Mhm.
Carol,
I
how have you, what do you get when your book, people read your book? What are you hearing out there with you being so vulnerable? Because I hear a lot, even when people see me in my community, they always have things to say. But I have
Yeah.
a lot of people who have lived through it that want to talk to me as well. And that's what it's
Yeah.
about. But go ahead.
I have quite a few people or friends that pull me aside and go, I just want to tell you that, something like this happened to me. I was
Yes.
sexually abused.
Mhm.
And I've got a number that just want to go have coffee and just tell me what
Mhm.
happened to them.
Right.
And that they can really relate to the emotion. I think
That's so
I
beautiful that
hear.
you do that, Carol.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
amazing.
And I've had quite a few people that just had no idea this was my background
Mhm.
and no idea that I'd come through this. I hear a lot about how could people not believe you, Carol? You're just this honest, straightforward person, So I get a lot of comments about that. And then people that I don't know, almost completely through, I hear how much it's helped them. So that makes me
Mhm.
really makes it feel worthwhile, my vulnerability, because I also definitely had some very negative things happen in my very close circle. I still don't, I don't have family that believes me.
Right.
And
Right.
or
I'm in the
No.
same boat.
right, you're in the same boat.
I
And
am.
Harney,
Most people, that's how it goes, really.
yeah. And there's a huge loss there, huge grieving and
Mhm.
heartache.
As the holidays come, that's really
Yes.
difficult for people who've come through and separated themselves to be safe, and the
Yeah.
church doesn't talk about that. Some people do, but
Right.
it's hard. And so that's beautiful, Sylvia, that you can have your mom and your sister by you. That's a
Yes.
beautiful thing. I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you, Sylvia, go back to one of the things that you said originally when we started. You said, um, this moving into it and you didn't have it there, and then having people talk to you about why you didn't remember and that sort of thing. So what kind of led up to you saying, I need to step into my story? Because you had a great life that you could continue to just bring that forward and say, my dad was accomplished. I've got articles about my family. I got a
Yeah.
Beamer from him. He loved me. Tell me what kind of happened in your life where you said, I just can't live this way anymore. Because right, you could have kept living that story. And
Yeah.
by the way, I know many people that tell me I'm going to keep living that story, but they have
Yeah.
dreams and it plays out. But talk to me a little bit about what facilitated you to say, I got to blow this cover.
I had become an alcoholic. I had become the only thing that could take my pain away, because I
Mm,
wasn't living for God, was a drink.
mm,
And I was getting into trouble. I was losing jobs. I was getting arrested. And the pain was so bad. And I had
mm.
started feeling that pain. Everything was coming up,
Yes.
but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the courage to share my story. It was
Mhm.
holding me in bondage.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I had a come to Jesus moment, and it was like, I'm not going to live. The devil is running my life right now because of what happened to me. And I've got to get it together. I'm going to lose my life.
Mhm.
I'm too young to die right now. I don't want to commit suicide. I don't want to have those thoughts anymore. I want healing. And pretty soon after that, God divinely intervened with some people that he surrounded me with and introduced me to just a really good non-denominational, Bible church that just, you know, taught the scriptures and, you know,
Mhm.
and that that was when I really asked God to come into my heart and begin the healing process, because I couldn't live like this anymore. I was going to lose my life. I was either going to kill
Right.
somebody
See,
and live in
exactly, you
prison.
guys.
I have nightmares about being in prison because I could be there right now for the rest of my life. That could have happened. By the grace of God, I'm alive and not in prison talking to y'all. And when you finally get that realization
Mhm.
and realize, I'm not going to let what happened to me rule my life. I'm in control. I wasn't in control back there, but now I can control it. But the enemy wants to keep you down. He wants to keep you in bondage. He wants to keep you in
Right.
shackles, in shame. There's such shame that comes
Oh,
with
well,
what
it's
we've been
incredible,
through.
right? And that's exactly what I wanted. I mean, because we all live it. The truth is, I think that if we could continue in denial, we might likely continue in denial. But unfortunately, the
Yeah.
symptoms of denial are debilitating. Our leg pains, our waking up at night, our nightmares, our constant fear of just walking to the car, going to the store, getting in an elevator, claustrophobia. And so your
Yeah.
fears actually escalate, as do
Mhm.
addictions and everything else, because the pain's so great. And
Mhm.
this is what people don't understand is we're not trying to litter the world with our stories. We're
Right.
trying to heal,
Right.
although God gives us the right. And I'm going to say it again and again. God gives us the right to tell the
Mhm.
stories of what these pedophiles did in secret, right? The Bible even says shout it from the
Yes.
Amen.
rooftops. And so I'm going to actually say shout it from the rooftops because we are
Yes.
victims. But I loved what you just shared, because the brokenness in us will kill us if we don't get it out of us.
Yes.
Carol,
I
what were you
felt
going to
very
say?
strongly that way too. And I think it's so important now that the research is showing that addiction is just part of trauma.
Hugely.
And that addiction is very close to traumatic events that have happened. And
Amen.
as a disease, we
It
have
stops
to
the
get the
pain for a
shame out
second.
of.
I mean, that's the truth,
Yep.
And so
It's
I
a
really,
trauma based.
Mhm.
yes, and the beautiful thing about that, Carol, is Jesus. I never felt God come to me and say, "You're an alcoholic." I never felt him say that. You know what I heard him say? "Can
Yeah.
I touch your broken
Yeah.
heart? Can I touch your
No.
Yeah.
broken heart?"
Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
ever felt like I needed to. And I wouldn't let other people do that to me either, because I knew and God knew that I was doing the best I could with what I
Right.
Yes.
had.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so all he kept doing, I love Joyce Meyer says, just put more good in, don't focus on the bad. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Right.
trying to say, right? And so
Yeah.
Mhm.
the more good you put in there, the more I started walking out of that stuff. But I didn't focus on it because I couldn't let it go. My pain was tremendous. I know
Oh,
that you guys know that. I
it's
would grab
huge.
my Bible at night after 2 bottles of wine or 7 drinks or whatever it was, and I would
Yep. Me
hold my
too.
bottle. Yep. And I would go to bed and say, God, I've done the best I could do today,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
love you with everything I have. Help me. And he
Yeah.
finds us right there. I always tell
Yeah.
people, don't get
Mhm.
clean and then come to God. My heaven's sake, bring your dirt there. That's what he wants. He's
Yeah.
the one that can clean it up. Everybody's always like,
Yes.
well, I'll get there one day when I'm good. Well, don't be good, be godly. He's good.
Yeah.
We don't need to be good. But it
Mm-hmm.
is that debilitating pain, and it's
Yes.
debilitating. I don't want to take my time doing this. I could be watching a movie, but you know what? There's that beautiful quote that says, when in the face of evil, if you don't do anything, that is evil itself. And I just can't be
Yeah.
quiet
Yeah.
anymore, you guys. I just
Yeah.
Yeah.
can't. When I know the right
Mhm.
thing to do, and there's millions and millions of people suffering. I write 6 days a week with my daughter and these things. And I really do want to encourage you guys to come back with me. I'd love to do this once
I'd
a
love
month.
to.
And,
I'd love to.
because it helps us as well do something with this horrible,
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
hear bitterness in any of us. In fact, I thought
No.
about my mother tonight coming back, and I know people don't understand our stories. I loved my mother. My mother was a horribly broken woman, and
Yes.
she's sick now. And, all of that kind of evil kind of implodes on you. That breaks my heart. That doesn't make me happy. She's my
No.
mother. Like, I don't have any kind of bitterness. I don't want to tell her story. I told
No.
that
Right.
story so that people understand that there are mothers that are pedophiles. It happens. There are double, there's lots of people that live these stories. I did it for truth's sake, not
Yeah.
to hurt my mother.
Not
And
to
so,
hurt. And,
right.
I wanted to clarify too, like when I talked about mothers, I think so many of the mothers, have so much pain. Like you said, my
Hugely.
mother was really struggling with alcoholism. And so, that makes them, that dysfunction just makes them so much less aware also
Well, that's
of
why they
what's
picked
going
him,
on.
right? They love
Yeah,
it.
and they're just
be a
trying to
good mama and
survive.
right. Just be a good mama, right, Sylvia? Just be a good mama and get out of my way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I love my mother dearly. I mean,
Of course we do.
but she was a very broken person
Yes.
and suffering a lot of pain, unfortunately.
See,
So
but that also though is a burden and a pain, and it's shameful and all of those things, right? But
yeah.
never to be misconstrued with anger, hate, or bitterness or any of that. I think that people do anger and bitterness and hate to avoid pain, kind of like I drink
I
wine
do
just
too.
because, right? It's just another
Mhm.
method, but I hate because I lived with hate all of my childhood. And so I
Yeah.
never really wanted to stay close to it. So I
Yeah.
self-destructed, right?
Yeah.
I
of
think
course.
many of us do that, right? Instead
We
of
tend
hurt other
to
people.
turn it towards ourselves. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I suffered for years with eating problems and addiction with that. And now the studies show it's very related to sexual abuse.
Huge.
And and Chris never knew that, but we all are. It's trying to get that anger directed outside and where it belongs, not at
Yes.
ourselves.
Right.
So.
It's funny that you say that, Carol. I had one girl in the study that we went through. She purposely gained 150 pounds
Right.
because she didn't want to be attractive.
Yep.
She didn't want somebody looking at her, and
It's protection.
she was protecting. It was
Yeah.
protectors.
Many of us fight that, right? I was 200 pounds when I was 15 because I figured, right, that dad wouldn't want me. And I had so much pain. What else could I stuff it with? And then he bought me that book called Help Lord, the Devil Wants Me Fat. I had to go on a fast for 10 days and I lost 60 pounds. I hated him for that because it was
Wow.
like dad doesn't want to rape a fat chick, it was
Yeah.
horrible. So I did lose 60 pounds and then I had an eating disorder for the rest of my life. I mean, I'd eat 500 calories a day, but eat,
Wow.
have 7 drinks because I had to look good. And then my mom would say, well, you've been smaller before. So my family always came around that, so there's so much dysfunction around that. But you know what? If you want to put a blanket of that insulation on you to feel safe, by God, do it for a minute if you need to, but get away to safety and keep yourself alive and let God heal your heart. And all of those other things will come, right? But I don't like these people that, let's focus on losing 50 pounds and then finding God. Well, let's focus on a broken heart. What I know Jesus is he said, I came to heal a broken heart and set the captive free. When you're captive,
Amen.
you're captive, right? And a broken heart, I don't know, the 50 pounds or the glass of wine or whatever, that's to me not the huge issue here, but your broken heart, that's what needs to be fixed. You guys, we're at time. I love you guys so much for being here, and we will be back. I mean, I think both of them have agreed, and we'll talk about that, but I'd love to do this once a month. And I'd like to just give this, I always like to just say, if there's anything that you feel on your heart you'd like to leave, we have a lot of listeners. This goes out on my YouTube channel, on podcasts. It's on many podcasts. And God is really using it just because there are so many people who need this. And we see you, we hear you, and we're here because we love you and we care.
Amen.
We could be watching a movie right now, but we genuinely care. So I'm going to give it back to you guys for a minute. If there's anything that you want to say before I close.
Yeah, no, I just want to emphasize that, going right through the fire is really the only way to heal. And when your
Yes.
time is right,
Yes.
you'll be able to do it and get that support group, support people around you. But there is a wonderful life at the end of this. And, I've had a wonderful, amazing life, and you can too. So,
100%.
good for
I
you
do.
looking at this, and good for you even listening to this podcast. So, and thank you so much,
Yeah.
Jody. You're just a warrior, and it's wonderful. And Sylvia, you too. So,
Oh,
Sylvia,
well,
go ahead.
thank you. And yeah, I guess too, writing on what, Carol said, it's, if you're listening, you don't have to be brave. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be anything. Like Jody, all you have to do is show your brokenness and God will come to you. I would get
100%.
so intoxicated, but when I got that sad and I was crying, I would turn on YouTube and listen to Christian music,
Yes. Amen.
and he would comfort me,
Yep. I
in
did the
my
same
pain.
thing, Sylvia.
Was I
I'd be
drunk?
drunk
Yeah.
and put on Christian music because I
But I'm
needed
like,
him.
I love you.
Yes. Don't ever keep him away.
But
That's the time you bring him
Yeah.
close.
yes,
Oh, I
but there
love
is
that.
there is healing, and it's not a 100%. It's not like you go to
Mhm.
surgery and then you're done.
Right.
It's a process, and I don't want to candy coat it because
It's true.
it's a wound, it's trauma, and it's our broken hearts, but it can be done. And the fact that I'm sitting here and speaking about it when I didn't do it for,
Mhm.
40 plus years,
Mhm.
Yeah.
then you can do it too.
Mhm.
Oh, I love that. All right. This is the Pedophile Huntress. We're coming to find you. We're going to break you down one secret at a time. God be with all of the people
Amen.
healing, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you
ladies.
so much, Jody.
Thank
Love
you,
you
Jody.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Yep. We'll talk
Love you
soon.
too. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.